What a pleasure. And next up, welcome Tiffany Bova and Eric Charles.
Hello.
Not that you need introduction, Tiffany Bova, Wall Street Journal bestselling author and Chief Strategy and Research Officer at Futurum Group, and Eric Charles, Senior Operator at Ohana Operators, former CMO of Exactly. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing great. I
What a
enjoyed the prior session, by the way.
Yeah, we're going to focus today on AI and speeding up the decision making. Eric, take it away.
All right. One, good to see you again, Tiffany. Thank you very
Nice to see
much.
you as well, Eric. Thanks for being the one who's going to join me today. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
this will be fun. So, all right. This is great. We've got 30 minutes and we're talking about reinventing the CXO role for AI, which I think is great when I look at the CXOs and board. We should add board to that, I feel, because of the overlap. And we've got such an interesting discussion, debate, and what is going on and what do you have to know. And this morning, I was in a conversation with several members from the local university about the challenge they have. They're actually trying to write AI rules for students. And it's really this like, hold it, we can't ignore it. It's no different than a web search in their case, but we don't want them letting the work be done for them. I'm thinking, that's interesting because in the business world, in many ways we're asking the AI to do the work for us. There's the typical town and gown discrepancy I feel going on here. So um, do you have and then I would love to, in a way, almost focus this a little bit with your PPTC rubric because I was thinking about that, the people, process, culture, technology. Technology we're talking about is the AI, but that rolls into the process of using it. What is the impact on the culture? Obviously, a lot of employees, there are probably some people on the call that are going to be freaking out of like, is my job at risk due to AI? And how do people use it? So, why don't we start with your thoughts? Shall we start at the ground first and just talk about the collapsing the customer journey? What's AI doing to the great go-to-market operation out there? What's your take on it?
Well, Eric, those were a lot of questions in there, so I'm going to
Sorry,
start. That's okay. That's
you know
okay.
me.
Yep. I'm like, which one? Students, business, like
Yeah, the students is more just an
PPTC.
intro, which I think
Yeah,
is an
yeah.
interesting one, but we can dig into it if
No,
we get
no
bored.
worries. No worries. So I'm actually going to ground it all the way at the bottom. And I try when we have conversations like this with big transformational shifts. And I've been in tech now 30 years, literally in like 6 months. It was 1996 when I started to get into the technology game, if you will. And I would say that jobs to be done is a great place to start. So for those of you listening who are not familiar with jobs to be done, it's a concept that comes out from Theodore Levitt from many, many years ago. And you probably have heard people don't buy drill bits, they buy quarter-inch holes, right? And so the sort of the what is the technology? AI, right? What is the outcome? The hole in the wall, right? The drill bit in the hole. I think he didn't go far enough. He's not alive anymore, obviously, but I don't think he went far enough because we don't sort of stand at the wall and go, isn't that a wonderful hole in the wall? We want to like hang a shelf or hang a family picture, or we want to build a desk for our kid or something like that, right? That is where we're really taking it. So if you apply AI to that, the concept is that the job never changes. Like I want to sell something to a customer. It used to be we would barter, like I'll give you a chicken if you give me a pig, like right. And then it became more financial based. And then now it's Bitcoin, right? Now it's digital interactions and engagements and sales motions. But the job is I want something you have something I want. Let's exchange that money for a product or service. So, from an AI perspective, I want everyone to realize that the job that you are doing now is not what changes. How that job gets done is what is getting changed. I do not believe AI is going to replace jobs. I do believe it will replace tasks. Now, you could argue in the jobs to be done framework that there may be, people have said there's industries littered with jobs that are gone because of technology. Sure, some of it was, heavy manual labor. Shouldn't we have machines doing it, right? Or repetitive tasks. Isn't it better to have machines doing it? So, an elevator operator, don't really need them anymore, right? But it allowed then humans to do other things. So if you feel like AI may replace your job, then the question I have for you is, should you be thinking about, how do I use AI to reimagine my job? What could it take away from me? And then what can I add on top of that? And so that maybe lends itself to the second question, or third question, on sort of collapsing the customer or buyer journey. Again, if you think about marketing technologies, like, I was a Loqua's beta client, literally in 2001. So back then, the marketing technology stack, there was like 8 or 10 options. I think if you look at what Scott Brinkler puts out now, it's like 15,000. It's some obscene number of options. So there is no shortage of technology, and clearly marketers are not out of work, and neither are salespeople. There's probably more of those roles, but those roles are now, those people are doing different things. So what pieces and parts of the journey can AI actually improve, not only for productivity and performance and profitability of your business, but for the experience of your customers? And I think that's where you should be really focused and what you should be asking. I know it might be scary, but if you can try and reframe your mindset, I think that's where, really magic happens.
It's funny when you talk about the 15 companies on the list and the old tech stack, those things, and then I joke, and I remember a task I did. It was mid 2000s, and I was asked to update the placemat of the ecosystem for a company I was working at. And now it's like, I said, we've now gone from a placemat to wallpaper. If I wanted to list everybody constantly changing, it would take the entire wall of a very large room to be able to see what's out there. I agree with you on the tactical versus the strategic. It's like, if your job is too tactical, you should be looking around to, how can you leverage it before it leverages you, in a sense. So I definitely think that's there. And I've had the joy of watching this live, both in my own job, but now, like you, I've been in tech for few decades. My son is now running sales for the Western US for a SaaS software company. So I see him leveraging AI for doing, like, he uses it for quick, tell me a little bit more about the market challenges in this area. And he's does his prompts and pulls it up. He's a salesman. So what is that AI replaced? Well, it replaced maybe a BDR doing a lot of background work. So he's replaced a lot of the work of the BDR, and he can almost get it in there. So I think about that first touch then. And this is what I mean, if I start thinking about the people, then, how long the role of the BDR, SDR, ADR, or whatever you want to call them, I think is significantly shifting
Yeah,
to
but
achieve that touch.
let me just kind of pose this to you. I mean, ultimately, if we go back in time, and there was, a dozen marketing technology solutions, they were on-prem, they were not SaaS-based or cloud-based, they were called very different things back then. Sales performance in the 20 years, let's just call it from 2000 to 2025, the real acceleration of sort of Seth Godin writing the book Permission Marketing, and then everything that changed from a marketing perspective after that, right? And let's just talk about performance. 25 years later, there's tens of thousands of marketing technology, sales and marketing technology solutions, yet only 30% of a seller's time is spent selling. And still, the low 50% range will actually hit quota. So
Yeah.
even with all the advancements of technology, we still have this huge gap in amount of time a seller is actually spending selling, and they're half pretty much are going to miss quota. So even with all the technology advancements, why aren't they spending more time selling, when all technology, the promise was that they were going to have more time to sell, and they have less time? Because now we've split the hair of, let's just pick the 6 stages of the sales process, right? And the 42 steps in the buyer's journey, right? And we now can track all of it because of technology, but is it actually making us better and smarter? And are we just trying to track everything for vanity's sake, or to make sure as a marketer, you keep getting your budget? Like, proving those metrics is the way to prove the value and keep getting the budget, versus really saying, hold on a second, like, maybe I want to put myself out of a job, right? And really use the technology to collapse the 42 steps, to get much smarter, to allow the system to be much more predictive around what is the next best action, removing humans from the, their own perceived next best action, so you can get consistency and test and iterate and learn. I mean, that's the promise of digital marketing and marketing. And when I was back in my role at Gartner, all the way back in 2008, we made a prediction that the marketer, the CMO, would spend more on technology than the chief information officer. And when we said that, by the way, everyone thought we were crazy. But sure enough, pretty quickly behind that, Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, SAP all went out and bought marketing technology companies because they wanted to get their hands on that budget. And it was because businesses want three things. They want to know information about their people, their finances, and their customers. Like, right? If you can really understand that and really have clarity there, you can make much faster decisions within the business. And I think this is where automation, where a basic AI, and I say basic just for a second, moving to agentic, the promise of actually having agentic AI as part of your marketing organization. Like, you might have 5 marketers and 4 agentic agents. So you have a team of 9, not 5 and some technology, but you have a team of 9. And how do you manage those other 4 that are really digitally based, right? Digital employees, digital labor. And how do you integrate that into a team? Like, those are the exciting questions to ask for me right now.
So let's say we've got, because one of the things we talked about before this when we were swapping notes back and forth before the call is the experience with AI is becoming a board level metric. The board wants to see it. So there's some gray-haired board member sitting out there. What should they be looking for in a CXO candidate? Maybe they're reviewing the next, I mean, it could be finance, we're talking about marketing, but what should they be looking at for AI experience for someone to come up to the C-suite?
Yeah, well, I just did a LinkedIn Live with Roger Martin this week on OKRs, right? And kind of KPIs, and the danger in the trap of, without a KPI or OKR, that's not a real strategy, right? And you can't measure what you can't manage. And if you've ever heard Roger, that's a very truncated sentence that gets tossed around a lot, which was part of a much larger statement that was said in that by Drucker. So, ultimately, you want to make sure that you don't get caught in the what's the metric, what's the expense. It's more of the, how do we reimagine what we're doing now? Where can we look at it almost like you're a software leader and you want to launch an MVP product? You don't put it into full production day one. Like, you put it in a sandbox, you test it, you shoot holes in it, you find a set of customers, right? You go out and figure out, is this really what they want? You pull them into the design journey of that product. You get feedback through customer advisory boards or partner advisory boards or whatever the case might be. Think the same way about agentic. And so is there a team within the organization that is going to say, look, we are going to, as a cross-functional part of this organization, we're going to take someone from sales, someone from marketing, finance, HR, products, whatever it is, say, we're going to stand up this agentic team. And I'll just give you an example. I was working with a client down in Brisbane, Australia. It was in my book, Experience Mindset. And we literally took a wall and we journey mapped the customer. And this was, 10, maybe 9 years ago. So very much ahead of the agentic conversation, if you will. And all we did was we mapped out every step the customer had, and then every step that the employee had to match what the customer had, so that we could see all the things employees had to do, and then all the things the customers had to do. And how could we, at the time it was Salesforce, how could we use the technology to collapse that time frame, improve the experience, et cetera. And by just mapping that out and asking for everyone to input within their own role control, sure enough, we took something that was like 14 months down to like 4 weeks. Significant improvement, and like no awards, and no one ever wanted to deal with this company. It was part of the government, so very bureaucratic and lots of red tape and regulations. And they have won tons of awards now of being one of the best experiences in government, because they really took that sort of product-centric, customer-centric view approach and pulled everyone in, versus saying it has to come from the top down. As you mentioned with students, your employees are using it today. The trick here is to harness what they're doing, making sure it fits within rules and you're not breaking trust and you're not sharing NDA or IP or any of those things that you don't want to do for obvious reasons. And how do you maximize that? So I would say, there is no one out there, just like with cloud, that has 10 years of agentic AI experience. They don't exist.
Right.
So you have to either say, we're going to find someone within that is just going to immerse themselves in where and how we can use agentic, who's doing what technologies do we own? If it's Microsoft, if it's ServiceNow, if it's Salesforce, if it's IBM, if it's, everybody has a story now. So what do we currently have the ability to do within the current acquisitions and technology we already have in place? How do we turn those on? Where do we use it? How do we use it? And how does it impact what we're doing? If you don't have that kind of beginner's mind and it's very fixed, like, okay, this is absolutely only about cost cutting, or it's only about reducing headcount, or it's only about improving one piece of the business, then those might not be the right leaders to take you to the future, right? Once again, like cloud, we still have this conversation on-prem or off-prem.
Yep.
In some small businesses, some 15 years later, they're still making a first-time leap. During COVID, many small businesses, it was their first time online.
Right.
So it's not, technology is even, usage and access is not.
So this brings up an interesting thing to me, and I've been thinking about this a lot because I love the idea of being able to set up enough of the prompts, enough of the designs to get an agent to say go. How do we supervise the agent in the go-to-market? What should be the audit trail or the tracking? Like and I'll go back to that first touch or early touches. If I dial up an agent who's going to go scrape through LinkedIn, websites, industry reports, we fed it our ICP, we fed it a few, this is what we think we can do, and it's sending out messages. And they should be adjusting the message and personalizing them. How do we, how can we keep an eye on it? What should we be doing because we don't want to slow it down. We know what we're up against. Because you talk about that, we talked about that a little bit with humans in strategic control, but sooner or later you have to dip into the tactical side. How do we maintain control of our agents?
There was a great study that Microsoft just put out. Actually, their Work Index report came out a few weeks ago. Work Index 2025 by Microsoft, and they really actually introduced this term, kind of like agent boss. Like, if you're a boss of agents, maybe not humans. Like, you might be running a after-hour call center as a human, but the after-hour agents are not human. But you are responsible from between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. to run the call center. There just may be a couple of humans and a lot of agents. And so you are an agent boss. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they responsive? Are they following the process? Are they uncovering anything? Is the workflows working? Like, you are an agent boss. And we went back and forth. I was part of the sort of research team on that from an outside perspective. And we went back and forth on the term. I was like, I don't know if I like, boss. Anyway, but agent boss is where they landed. And then actually having organizational structures like what I just sort of teased out, where, I'm Tiffani Bova and I have 7 humans who work for me, and I have 5 agents, and they're very clear agents. It's not that each human has an agent. It's agents that support those humans in very specific tasks and processes. And so collectively, I have this team, and maybe those agents give me 3x human capacity than I would have if I didn't have the humans. So should they be on my org chart? Should they be counted as digital labor?
Right.
I mean, like, these are the really compelling questions. And if you're listening to this going, oh my goodness, like, how am I going to have a team meeting with my humans and my agents? Like, it gets fun a little bit, it's a great cocktail conversation. But the reality is that these are real questions, because you don't want tens of thousands of agents running around your organization, just like you wouldn't want 10,000 employees running around your agent organization with no oversight and no management and no rules and no all that. You have to think the same way, because if they're just running around aimlessly, they can do more damage than good. I realize humans have to direct. I understand. But you also don't know what some human has introduced, some agent that you're not aware of. Similar to shadow IT back in the day. Now, are we going to have shadow agents which not are we are.
We
And
are,
so how
yeah.
do you manage those shadow agents, and how do you corral it where you really do view it as part of your organizational structure?
It's funny. I remember the first time I started seeing certain contractors showing up on org charts. Marketing teams where we use a PR agency, and instead of just saying that person runs PR, we actually put the agency and the primary contact at the agency on the org chart to recognize the fact that, if you're angry at a press release, this is the person that signed off on it, but these are the people that actually executed it. Are
Great
we ready?
example.
Are we ready to just make agents like, treat them like contractors then? In the org chart and the reporting and is that the
Sure.
comfortable
I mean,
mindset?
sure. I mean, if that's something that your company does today, I mean, I think if you're going to deploy an agent, like I said, like, having, using bots and moving to AI and moving to agentic is three very different functions, right? So if you have a
Hmm.
bot that's doing basic knowledge base answering after hours, like let's just talk about the call center after hours, right?
Yep.
That's one thing. But if you're literally having agentic AI behave as a call center representative and solving much more complex problems, and then instead of it being like, oh, the bot will handle tier dot five, and when it gets to tier one, a human steps in. But what if agentic is, it takes it all the way to tier two, and then a human steps in at tier two? That's very different. And so, from a call center perspective, clients expect not having 10-minute hold times, right? So are there ways in which agentic can reduce that and allow you to hit that SLA and do it with humans and technology? I am not a fan of human alone in regardless of agentic, and I'm not a fan of technology alone. I am a fan of the power of the two. Now, there may be situations where human alone makes a lot of sense, and there may be situations where agentic alone makes a lot of sense. But I like the 80-20 of, if 80% is the combination of the two, solve for that. And then, the outlier would be when agentic or human does it completely alone, and that there's a really good reason. And if you're a plumber, that's different, right? If it is a service, a human service, that it's face to face, that gets a little bit more difficult. If it's digitally based, especially in things like marketing, like, I'm going to kick off a campaign. There was just something that was announced in this particular industry, and we have a product. I saw the news 90 seconds later. I've already designed and created a campaign, and I've launched in 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Not, we got to pull a meeting together. 2 weeks later, we get approval and we launch. Like, speed
Right.
is the new currency. Can agentic really help us? Now, you don't want that to just happen on its own once again, right? So part of your org, that last step would be a human steps in and goes, let me read the copy. Let me make sure it's okay. Let me make sure they're not saying or doing something, not they, but the agentic AI, right? It is not doing something we don't want it to do.
What are the trigger questions the C-suite should be asking their team? So you're a CMO, you've got a growth marketer underneath you. I mean, you can ask the generic, how are we using agentic AI? The scary question, somebody from the C-suite walks through a bullpen or something and says, "Are we using AI?" But how can we check to see if our teams are starting to leverage the right pieces?
I always like to deconstruct what's happening today, almost like that example I gave you about the company in Brisbane. Like,
Hmm.
really journey map what you're doing today from a marketing perspective. And then first, I'd say, are you maximizing everything you already have within your four walls technically? Where are the processes broken? Going back to my PPTC framework, right? What processes are broken? Do I have the right people focused on the right things? Are they, organized correctly? Like, making sure all that is happening, right? The processes, are they streamlined? Are there, clear handoffs? Like, that should be something you're always doing, but maybe this agentic AI and AI in general is forcing you to actually take a look at it again, because it should be something you are constantly monitoring, not kind of just once a year.
Right.
And then saying to yourself, okay, what is our performance today? What is the goal of marketing? Is it net new clients? Is it leads? Is it, average sale price or ASP? Is it basket size? Is it improving basket abandonment on digital, purchases? Is it, what are the metrics that you currently have? And if they've kind of just remained flat, it's like, how do I get 10x what I'm getting now? Like, if we had a 10x goal and I could just wipe the chessboard, what would I do differently knowing what I know? And how could I deploy agentic AI and AI to help me do that? Go for 10x. Like not incremental, like, oh, we want to improve net promoter score by, 2 points, or we want to, increase the velocity of the funnel by, a week, or we want, like, I want to 10x everything that we're doing right now. And the normal response would be, let me throw bodies at it, or let me spend more money. Versus now, you can't spend more, throw more bodies at it, and maybe you can't spend more money. So is agentic the way that we actually make this happen?
Have you seen any good examples of agentic being used at the customer success retention level? Because we talk about the first touch, get the close, expand within the account for land and expand. That's all. I mean, I consider those all still the marketing sales side, and then we bridge over into customer success, which gets us retention. That the overlap of that, the full. Have you seen any great examples of agentic for customer success?
Yeah, I know a few, and I would say this regardless of my previous employer being Salesforce, but Salesforce has deployed it internally. I call it sort of that, I don't call it, but the market kind of calls it this client zero experiment. So Salesforce is its own client zero for customer success using Agentforce. They've spoken publicly about it a lot. You could dig into the volume at how much used to be handled by human, what the response time was, how many touches, the satisfaction, the things they were able to do with just the humans. Even though they had AI built into, their systems, obviously, now really leveraging Agentforce, you just see the amount of engagement and interaction exponentially grow, satisfaction exponentially grow, the amount of cases or touches that they can have in a given day or a week, how it's really democratized the fact that customer success, a human may have only been reserved at the top and the largest of accounts. And how do you get that to the entire long tail? I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. And so I would just say to you that I am a huge believer in this sort of client zero experience, right? Really find a part of your business where you can try and deploy it, where it doesn't have, it's not mission critical and it won't completely, destroy your revenue streams. But the worst thing that can happen is you learn from it, right? That failure is only a learning exercise, not a, oh my gosh, we have to close our doors and let go of all of our people. Like, you don't want to test it there. But if you are iterating really quickly, I'd say change management becomes absolutely super critical, because looking at the processes and opportunities for improvement, I would say having a beginner's mind, right? As a leader, not having the fixed mindset of we've always done it this way, I'm not going to change. Agentic, stay over there, or I'm only going to use it for basic functions because that's what I feel comfortable doing, versus thinking about what the market has an opportunity. I guarantee you, your people are using it in some way. So doing that inventory and understanding, so you can make sure that you don't have rogue agentic agents out there, engaging with your clients or doing things nefarious internally, and or even hallucination on some of the things that are coming from a senior level. It should be really a partner at the table of the board, showing you the signals in the business that you otherwise would not know. It may not be correct, but the smarter and the more you use it, the smarter it gets, the more you use it, the cleaner your data is, the more you actually have an opportunity to be competitively positioned to win in the market going forward.
Perfect. I know we're up at time right now. Y'all can find Tiffani at tiffanybova.com. You can find me at erikcharles.com. We both, got our URLs with our names early in the internet days, so before somebody could grab it. Thank you very much. It's been great talking. I recommend you hit her site. She's got a couple great books, The Experience Mindset and Growth IQ, both wonderful growth leads, some on-demand content, a newsletter, and podcast with new episodes drop on Thursdays.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Have a great
so
rest of the event.
much. Thank you. Such an honor, Tiffani and Erik. Always great to see you. And we are transitioning to our next session. Welcome, Latney Conant, CRO at Six Sense.